All right, well, welcome to the 13th meeting of the Pioneer Valley Films. So, most of this meeting is going to be our speaker, Peggy Twardowski.
That's right. That's
okay.
Excellent.
Okay, I met Peggy about, I think, actually 3 years ago now.
Probably, yeah.
Because you were doing meetups on crowdfunding
Yeah.
a while back then, and I was impressed with what you were doing and had to say, and then I discovered that you're even more experienced than I realized, and so I'm going to, with just that general introduction, just turn the floor over to you. And everybody has your bio in front of them if they want to read more, so
Yeah.
Feel free to take it away.
All right, great. Well, thank you for having me here tonight. I'm going to be talking about crowdfunding film campaigns. And a little bit about me. My day job is working for a video game agency, so we help development studios that make video games find publishing deals, work for hire opportunities, alternative financing. As part of that, I've been on 2 multi-million-dollar video game campaigns that are in the top 5 on Kickstarter, and those were big teams. I was part of one of like a dozen people on those teams and got a lot of experience. And I've also taken my experience and helped other people, met with individuals and organizations who wanted to use crowdfunding for their creative projects, basically. In total, the campaigns I worked on have grossed about $10 million.
Wow.
And so I'm glad you are all here. I'm curious why you're thinking about crowdfunding. I have a list of reasons I'll go over, but why do you guys, what makes you interested in crowdfunding? Anyone?
Well, I mean, my big motivation is that we have an actual script that we have written to the point where we're very happy with it. It's already registered with the Writers Guild of America. We put a lot of time and effort into it. So this group is basically about producing films. Jonathan has it's sort of emerged out of this critique group of projects that were either in process or had just been completed, and we at one point said, well, let's actually make something now since we've got all these creative people. So we're in this process right now of looking at shooting a short film, which will certainly have some financial requirements. So that's the big motivation. And a couple of us have done crowdfunding campaigns with, I'll say, limited success. I for one, tried one and was really disappointed with how it turned out, and realized that I was in way over my head. So
Okay.
That's probably largely it for this group. But does anybody else have any other?
I did a Kickstarter thing like when I first started. Nobody knew what it was.
Yeah.
And I was looking for I think 20 grand to do a storyboard and animatic to a feature animation project that I was doing. And out of the $20,000, I got about $1,800 from people.
Yeah.
And of course, if you don't get it all, you don't get any of it.
Right.
But it was the first time when Kickstarter started. So I'm more interested in trying to now that everybody knows about it, I think it's I'm ready to maybe try and reboot that idea again.
Yep.
And see what happens this go around.
Right. So if you're not familiar with crowdfunding, it's a simple way of raising money from many different people, the crowd. And it's become a socially acceptable way of asking your friends and family and colleagues for money, so it's a very easy way to raise money. You can get funds anywhere from just kickstarting your project, which was the original conception of Kickstarter, but it's kind of morphed into where people are hoping to get more than just money to kickstart their project. They're looking to fully fund their project. You get to keep ownership of your project. You're not selling your IP. You can use the money that you raise instead of your own money, so you're not putting your own personal money at risk. It's one way of building and engaging an audience. So if you don't need the money, you can certainly still do a crowdfunding campaign as a way to bring eyeballs to your project and get fans that maybe you wouldn't get otherwise. You can also use it to engage with those fans and get feedback on the project. And but you know, the caveat, it's not free money, so the money you raise can get reported on 1099 if you hit certain goals. But you can also expense anything that you spend on creating the campaign against that. So there are many different types of crowdfunding platforms out there. There are simple donation platforms like GoFundMe would be the largest. There are equity platforms where you give up a little bit of your company in exchange for money. Lending platforms, and then the rewards-based platforms, which I am most familiar with, that would be the Kickstarter and Indiegogo campaign platforms. And this is just information just to quickly go over about the Kickstarter landscape. This one person puts together this data on Kickstarter. I haven't seen anything comparable on Indiegogo. So we're going to mostly talk about Kickstarter here. And unfortunately, he didn't publish the same data for 2018, so it stops with 2017. I don't expect that things have changed very much, though. So, total amount pledged per year, over $653 million on Kickstarter. And of that, $601 million, about 92% of that, successfully funded projects. So quite a bit of money flowing through. The total number of projects per year funded and not funded is about 36%, almost 37% success ratio.
Sorry, 37%
were successfully funded.
Yeah, so a third, that's not bad.
Yeah. The number of funded projects per tier. So the ones that raise less than 10,000, you can see, are the majority of the funded projects, with successfully smaller projects, smaller number of projects in higher tiers.
When you say project, these are all kinds of projects, not
These
just
are
film.
all projects across Kickstarter as a
Not just
platform.
filmmaking or-
Not just filmmaking. Nope. There are a couple slides that talked about film and video coming up. And this one, he compares the number of projects that had some funding versus projects that received zero funding. And he uses this as a gauge of the quality of projects. So if you get zero funding, that must be a low-quality project. And so it's pretty low at 12% for low-quality projects.
So that just means the ones that failed.
Not just ones that failed, ones that got no money, no pledges, zero. So you can still raise money but not hit your goal, and then you would not have reached your target. You would not have succeeded in funding your campaign. So the total number of projects per category in film and video, we can see from 2016 to 2017, it went down a little bit, a little over 5,500 projects. And the number of funded projects was under half of that. Film and video, 2,000 projects in 2017. And so he's just showing it was a dip of 16% year over year. And so the amount of money pledged per year in film and video, and I think this speaks to how competitive crowdfunding has become.
It's hard to read the numbers at the bottom. Are these years?
These are years,
Yeah, starting
2011.
with-
Yep, 2011 going to 2017.
Okay.
And I will make a copy of this available so you can see it in PDF form. And then for film and video, this is the number of successful projects per tier. So again, you can see that the projects with the smaller goals, less than 10,000, or smaller raises, excuse me, less than 10,000 were the majority of the successful projects. But, you know, also looking at the numbers, that's over 1,300 projects. So again, a very competitive landscape. And on par with the rest of the platform, film and video alone has about a 36% success ratio in that particular category. And then this is a breakdown of the subcategories under film and video on Kickstarter. And so what we see here are the total number of funded projects by subcategory: documentary leads, followed by shorts, which is good for what I hear about the project that you're going to be working on. The general catch-all film and video follows next, comedy, and then drama.
Anything there for animation?
Yeah, animation was 80 projects. And so when you're doing a crowdfunding campaign, there are 4 distinct phases. The design phase, which is when you're going to be researching comparable campaigns, rewards, the cost for those rewards, and thinking about assets, both in terms of human and merchandise assets that you can use to incorporate into your crowdfunding campaign. You're going to be prepping next. That's the next phase for your campaign. This is where you're going to be building up your social network. You're going to be pre-marketing your campaign, because a campaign that's launched as a surprise, unless you're a known celebrity, won't take off. And building out your campaign page. And then once you launch your project, that's when the crowdfunding begins, and you're going to be actively communicating with your fan base and community. The last step is fulfillment, and fulfillment is about when you get the money, and then you can take that money and you can use it to both create the project and fulfill the rewards that you promise your backers. So time frame for launching a campaign. You have to take into account the preparation, the time to research and prepare. And then you also have to take into account the length of the campaign, and then the fulfillment. So preparing a campaign takes a lot of work, because you're going to be online looking at comparable campaigns, trying to find them on either Kickstarter or Indiegogo. You're going to be doing the project concept, production plan, marketing plan during the design and prep. This is when you will create your pitch video, and hopefully you will be passing around, getting lots of round of feedback on your pitch video, the reward tiers and samples of your rewards, and begin seeding your social channels about the upcoming crowdfunding campaign. When you run your campaign, it's going to be probably under 2 months' time. So on Kickstarter, you have to submit your campaign for approval. They say give them 3 business days, submit it a week in advance. It doesn't have to be completely finalized, but they just want a general sense of the campaign and make sure that's not violating any terms or conditions or doing anything illegal. Then you're going to launch and manage your campaign. That will last probably a month. And then after that, Kickstarter holds on to the funds for 2 weeks while it clears out the credit card payments and stuff. So it's not immediate money once the campaign closes. Have to account for a little bit of delay in payment. And then fulfillment is just going to depend on the project itself, like how long it's going to take you to actually create your project, how long it's going to be for you to put together the rewards and ship them out to the backers. And hopefully the campaign is the beginning of a new start for your project, so taking it to film festivals, online distribution, stuff like that.
Is there a statistic showing to what extent the rewards are actually rewarded?
You mean that are actually fulfilled?
Fulfilled, yeah.
I didn't look at that completely. No, I don't have that information on hand. But there were, I was actually quite pleased when I was looking at a lot of the local campaigns to see that the films had actually been released, and that they were not just in suspended states of production.
Oh, I was thinking about the tokens that, they say a copy of this or a T-shirt and various things that are awarded at different levels.
Yeah, so that's where you do your homework. That's where you look at campaigns and see what
Right.
they offer. You see how many backers are in those tiers, so you get a sense of how many of that particular merchandise you would need to pay for and ship. Yeah. So when you set your campaign goal and budget, you want to set it as low as possible because you want it to be achievable, and it needs to look realistic to any outside people who look at it. It needs to show a breakdown, a general breakdown like this sample here of how much would be going to different phases of production. And depending on your platform, you also need to account for whether or not, how you set your goal depending on the platform, because Kickstarter is all or nothing, whereas Indiegogo has a flexible funding model, so you get to keep any of the money you raise even if you don't hit your goal. And this is just an example of like a gross platform raise. So if you were to raise $10,000 on Kickstarter, Kickstarter takes 5%, and then payment processing is about another 3%. Maybe the cost to produce and ship the backer rewards is another 20 to 30%. And so out of a $10,000 gross raise on Kickstarter, what you're left with for your budget, for your project, would be about $12,600.
Are you gonna go over the pluses and minuses of, like a Kickstarter, you either get it or you don't, versus Indiegogo, you get some of it? That's this, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Here we
Good
are.
question. Very timely question.
Okay.
So there are different platforms out there. Kickstarter, Indiegogo, those are the two most well-known. There's also Patreon, which is a different model. And then, I don't know if anyone's familiar with Seed and Spark.
I don't know that one.
No one knows Seed and Spark. Okay.
Heard of it.
Okay, yeah, okay. So Kickstarter, the largest rewards-based crowdfunding platform, and I think it's the best for creative projects. So their model is fixed. So you either get all or nothing. That means you either hit your goal and you get the money and backers are charged. If you don't hit your goal, backers aren't charged anything, but you're off the hook. You don't actually have to go through with the project.
And quick question,
Yeah.
how long are you gonna keep that window open on Kickstarter? Or?
I'll get over. I'll talk about duration. So the fees are pretty similar across all the platforms. They take 5% plus another 3% for payment processing, plus another like 20 cents or 30 cents per pledge. With Kickstarter, it is loosely curated, so that means that you need to submit it ahead of time for approval before you launch on their platform. Just in terms of size, though, they've raised $4.6 billion through their platform. That's over 465,000 campaigns from 17 million backers. So definitely the largest crowdfunding platform that's rewards-based outside of GoFundMe.
Can you do a Kickstarter and an Indiegogo for the same project at the same time?
That's under my FAQ question. That will be later.
Okay.
Yep.
I'd asked her that.
Yeah. I gave you a short answer, but yeah, we'll go over that. The largest film campaign, and I put these in here because it gives you a sense of the size of the platform. So the largest film campaign was for Critical Role, and this is a traditionally podcast video blog group, and it was to do an animated special. So they raised over $11 million in this one campaign from 88,000 backers. And the success rate on Kickstarter is about 37%, 36% as we've seen. Now Indiegogo is the second largest platform, and to me what I had heard just anecdotally is that for film, it was the best platform to be on for film. And as we go through the local data, I kind of disagree with that perception. So, but we'll get into that. Indiegogo has both models. So it's the flexible funding where you get to receive any amount of the funding, even if you don't hit your goal. Or they do offer the Kickstarter version, the all or nothing model. And that is that you don't get any money unless you don't get any money if you don't hit your goal. Very similar payment fees. It's not curated, so you can pretty much launch as soon as you're ready to go. It doesn't need any pre-approval. In terms of size, it is smaller, so only $1.6 billion raised across the platform versus 4.6 on Kickstarter. Their largest film campaign was Super Troopers 2 at 4.6 million from 54,000 backers. The success rate on Indiegogo is very low, so it's 10% flexible if you go flexible funding and 17% fixed. So if you're going to go fixed model, you should just do Kickstarter because it has a higher success rate. And then Patreon. Is anyone familiar with Patreon here? Patreon is a subscription-based model, and it's based on the traditional way of patronizing a artist for giving them a monthly stipend almost. So they're calling it a membership model, which I think is interesting. And this is not, unlike Indiegogo and Kickstarter, this is not a lump sum of money that you get upfront from raising for a specific project. This is more for ongoing content. So if you're producing like a regular, webisode or podcast or audio book or comic book or graphic novel, Patreon totally makes sense for that. they said that they're on track to raise $1 billion, so it's a smaller platform than Indiegogo and Kickstarter. The largest film campaign is actually really a creator, so it's a person named Jim Swim who does criminology and psychology videos, and the best that could be estimated is that he gets about $43,000 to $174,000 a month for his videos, and has 21,000 patrons. And it's all rolling goals, so the success rate is not, it doesn't really apply here. Now, Seed and Spark is a platform that it's wholly focused on filmmaking. And so they have things that, they allow things to happen in a campaign that I haven't seen on other platforms. So backers can give you, can support your campaign in additional ways. It doesn't have to be all monetary support. So that means that they offer a thing for wish lists, so equipment lists. So if you know you need hammers and nails or screwdrivers and stuff, you can put that on the wish list, and a backer can be like, hey, I'm going to lend that to you. They also allow that you get the money if you hit 80% of your goal. You don't have to hit all or nothing. And similar payment fees. It's highly curated, which is why they brag that they have a 78% success rate. But it is also a significantly smaller platform, so $23.5 million raised, and about 1,800 projects across their platform. But what's interesting is they also have this thing that if you can get 500 backers on their platform, then you get access to their distribution specialist. And one of the things that they're doing now, this is new to me since I last looked at them, is that they have a subscription for seeing content on their platform. So content that creators have put forth on the Seed and Spark platform, they're wrapping it up for people who are in love with independent film and want access to a broad library of content to be able to watch that on their platform. And I don't know if it's still applicable, but at one point, part of the deal with the 500 backers, if you reach that goal, and remember, this is a significantly smaller platform, and I think because it's highly curated and because it's a smaller platform, it might be tougher to get to the 500 backers on their platform. But they said that they had deals with like Verizon distribution and stuff like that. So if you hit that mark, then they would talk to you about distributing on other platforms like that. So when you're thinking about crafting your campaign, one of the things that was just asked is how long to run a campaign. And I keep saying you're going to run it about a month. And the reason about a month is because that is the length of time that has been the most successful, either on Kickstarter or Indiegogo. They both say about a month, about 30 days. And that is because it's just long enough to put that sense of urgency on people who come across your campaign to back it, but it's not too short that people will find about it too late. So if you can run a campaign for 2 weeks, but it might be too short of a window for people to find your campaign. And a strong launch is critical. So this is just, if you're not familiar with KickTrack, there's a little bit of a footer here with that website information in there. But KickTrack will show you how a campaign is progressing day by day. And this is the chart that it produced for the Veronica Mars movie project. And it shows the revenues by day, but they also have a chart for backers by day and also comments by day, and comments being a metric for engagement. And there are just various success parameters, so you want to see at least 20% in the first 48 hours of your campaign to know that you're going to hit your goal. Usually once you hit 60–70% of your goal, you will be successfully funded. The thing to remember going forward, and we'll talk a little bit about this later, is that when you fund, when you're fundraising, the pattern is usually a U shape. So you get a lot of money up front at the launch. It goes into this dead zone very quickly, as you can see, and then you get a little bump in the end when people come on to back the project right before it ends. Maybe they have the reminder set in Kickstarter that says, hey, this project's ending in 48 hours. Part of the research is you want to look at comparables for your campaign. For this exercise, I looked at the top 5 video and film campaigns. I didn't look at Critical Role in this particular instance, so it's a freely distributed series, but none of the rewards offered any copies of the actual series that they were raising money for. It was all merchandise. So I looked at Veronica Mars, Wish I Was Here, by Zach Braff, Blue State Mountain, Spike Lee's movie, and Under the Dog. And what I found is some of the characteristics I found throughout these top 5 video and film campaigns is the most popular tier prices were 20 to 35 and the $50 tiers. These were the tiers where the movies were offered as copies. So digital copies in the 20 to 35, DVD in the $50 tier. The average amount of money brought in per backer was $72. And the average number of backers in these campaigns was 36,000. And the average number of reward tiers that they had were 24. So they had a lot of reward tiers. Now, I'm not saying that you should do that, but this is just one of the exercises to think about when you're crafting your campaign, is looking at these metrics. And then when you look at these campaigns, be sure to pay attention to their messages, the examples of rewards, and the reward tier pricing. So this is taking the data from those 5 campaigns and mapping out the number of backers in different reward tiers and the revenue that was brought in. And so we can see that the bar would be backers, and then the line is revenue. We can see that a high number of backers in the 30 to 39, and it brought in a modest amount of revenue. That would be one of the core tiers of offering the copy of the digital film. And the $50 tier, a lot of backers, and it brought in a good amount of revenue there. That would be where the DVD copy was. But don't neglect to have higher price tiers, because it drives up the cost of the average amount of money brought in per backer, so $72. And that's because you can see, even though the reward tiers at higher levels brought in fewer backers, it still brought in revenue. So one of the things you want to do when you're preparing your campaign is you want to assemble your team. What does that mean? You want to find people who can help with the critical aspects of your campaign. So that means building out the campaign page and maintaining that and posting updates, responding to backer comments, pushing out social media messages, figuring out which social networks you need to be most present on, and updating the project website, and sending out the newsletter, email newsletter. You also need to determine the 1 or 2 people who are going to be the face of your campaign, so someone who's natural or at ease in front of the camera, who can talk about the project, and be the person that is the signature at the end of the updates. So your live op teams for a $40,000 project, if that's your goal, I think it's pretty reasonable to think that 2 people can handle that. It might be a little tight. Certainly more is better. But about a $40,000 project, if you're looking at 600 to 800 backers, 2 people. In your campaign, you want to convey passion and integrity. So crowdfunding is mostly an honor code system, because Kickstarter and Indiegogo have made it clear that it's up to the creators to fulfill the rewards that are promised to backers. And there's certainly been a few cases where backers have tried to take creators to court to claim the rewards that they never got. There haven't been a lot of cases, so it's not something that's highly enforced. But I think that it makes backers a little wary for backing campaigns. And so you want to have a campaign page that conveys trust, integrity, professionalism, and your passion for the project. So ways to do that: your pitch video. You want to make sure your pitch video is short, because people's attention spans are 2 to 5, keep it 2 to 5 minutes, but most people will probably make up their minds about backing a campaign in the first 30 seconds of the pitch video. The pitch video is a personal plea, and this is different from having a movie trailer. So the pitch video is letting the backers get to know you, feel comfortable, trust you, get to see your passion for your project. And you want to also keep your pitch video fairly generic, because I've seen pitch videos where people start to talk about the rewards, which makes the pitch video too long. But then also at the last minute, if you change any of the rewards or something doesn't happen, you would need to go back and edit that pitch video. Then another way that you can also convey your passion and the quality of the project that you're putting forth is including sample videos, so past work from cast and crew members here, trailers for the movie that you are going to be doing, and links to any YouTube and video channels that you guys have that you're running. Be sure to include cast and crew bios and interviews, and then also your production budget and time frame. Rewards. So you want to make sure that the rewards are enticing and well priced. $25 is the most common pledge. $70 is the average amount raised per backer. That is according to Kickstarter. So you want to be sure you hit those beats. Research rewards, make sure that you put them in appropriately priced tiers so that you're not actually going to lose money on them if backers are at that tier. You want to have low-level rewards and high-level rewards. Don't leave any money on the table. You don't know where backers will necessarily come in and back your campaign. But also show examples of the rewards that they'll get, because it will give a sense of credibility to the campaign. Definitely in lower tiers, I would encourage you to think about having digital-only rewards, so that way you don't have to worry about shipping or packaging. And then in higher tiers, think about what limited or exclusive experiences or merchandise you can offer to backers that might entice them. And definitely, I've seen campaigns where they have definitely include base tiers for just getting a copy of the movie digitally and getting a copy of the movie physically. Some people try to wrap the movie with all these other goods, and then they make the tier more expensive when the majority of backers just want the movie itself. But again, don't be afraid to, what I say, swing for the fences with cool rewards. Can you think of like a VIP event to include, maybe a premiere party or a film festival party? Maybe there can be meet and greet with the cast and crew or any celebrities that are associated with the film. Voice messages, have like an actor call and leave personalized voice messages to backers. Be an extra in the film, write part of a script, contribute to a script, to the soundtrack. There are lots of things that maybe you can find ways that backers can engage in the film that you can price a little bit higher. And of course, the tiered producer credit, that's a very popular way of pricing out rewards. So be flexible and add rewards. If you find that backers are wishing that there were particular rewards being offered by the campaign, you can always add rewards. You can't go back and edit a reward once a backer has backed that particular tier, but you can certainly add. And if you have many tiers, consider adding a reward chart to show backers what they get. This is an example of a reward chart. And again, this is from Being Helen Keller. This is samples of rewards. This is from a comic book campaign. This is from Veronica Mars. Just showing samples of the rewards might be very appealing to backers, but also give that credibility that you're very serious about putting forth this campaign. So the strong launch in social networks. So if you recall the Veronica Mars chart that we saw from KickTrack, where there's a lot of money up front, then it goes into this dead zone for about most of the campaign with a little bump at the end. You want to make sure that you hit the ground running when you launch your campaign. What does that mean? It means that you've prepped your social networks and alerted them that this campaign is going to be launching and when it's going to be launching. Because in my experience, 60 to 80% of the backers of a campaign come from your social networks. It's a myth to really think that the anonymous crowd is going to be the one backing and making your campaign. Those days are long gone. It's now a very competitive platform, as we saw. How much money's flowing through these platforms, how many projects have launched on these platforms, the lower success rate of about 36%. So that's why social networks are important, because they're going to be the ones that are backing your campaign ultimately. Some other tips I like to give: you want to launch the campaign Monday through Wednesday. Avoid the weekends and holidays, because because typically people are away from their computers, and so there's actually been data that shows that less money flows through the crowdfunding platforms on those days. And you also want to end during that same time frame too, like a Monday and Wednesday. Don't end on a weekend, because people may be away from their computer and not able to pledge at the in the last day or two. So find ways of promoting your crowdfunding campaigns in person at events. Look at if there are festivals, parties, things that might be relevant to your film, at which you can bring postcards. Postcards are very cheap to print, and say, hey, we're running a campaign right now during this window. Please consider backing the campaign. Of course, continue to do the traditional press releases, send to film and news sites, local newspapers, to get interest and eyeballs on your campaign. And then also think about, when I say think about the human assets that are working in your campaign, think about partners that you can work with that, that have social networks that they can also promote your campaign to. And these could be maybe places that you're going to be screening your film. They could be film festivals, the actors themselves, if you're using any musicians for the soundtrack, any organizations and influencers that might be tied to the theme of your short film. Think about reaching out to them. During the campaign, you want to send out quality updates. So one of my pet peeves is I see updates that just say, hey, I'm running this campaign, please support it. Hey, this campaign has 3 weeks left, please support it. Hey, this campaign now has 2 weeks left, please support it. It gives nothing to any potential backer, any reason to support the campaign unless they're a friend of yours. But I think if you can send quality updates, and this would be updates that have more in-depth interviews about the project, maybe interviews with the people on the film, actors, cast, crew, about why they want to see this film made, maybe a little bit more on the backstory of how this project came to be. Those are all things that would help draw in people and encourage them to be interested in your project. And you can pre-plan these updates, and now that you're a film group, you can use all sorts of films, like filming the making of, while you're making your film, and use that as campaign updates. But you can definitely pre-plan updates before the launch of the campaign and put them, have them ready to go once the campaign goes live. In fact, that would be, ideal. For a campaign, depending on the goal, I think at minimum you should have an update a week to on the campaign page itself. And it should, if you're finding that you have higher momentum, certainly do more updates about the campaign. And there are other ways that there are other ideas for quality updates. There could be testimonials, people who've liked previous work that you've done, interviews, proof of concept. If you've tested out some of the things that you're doing for the film, you can show this is something that we tested out. If you have any fans, ask them for fan art submissions, and then answer fan questions. Like one of the campaigns I did was Bloodstain, and the Japanese video game designer, every Friday was Fan Friday, and so he would showcase fan art for his video games, but he would also, in a video, answer questions. He would take one question that had been submitted and answer a question.
What platform were you using for him to, he was interactively answering questions? Or
It was pre-filmed, so,
Oh, okay, so he got questions
yeah,
prior, and then you shot a video of him answering?
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and then posted that as part of the update to the Kickstarter page.
Just one other thing, it seems like, I mean, if you're really just doing a month, you're talking about an initial announcement, the big, day zero, you're doing an announcement, and then you're essentially just you're really doing 3 more big announcements, 3 more weekly
Yeah,
updates
Yep.
before it ends, unless you do like we're in the last 24 hours kind of thing, and we're almost gonna make it.
well, those will be announcements that you should always do, like the ones about timing of the campaign. If you hit certain funding milestones, like, hey, we're at 25%, 50%, hey, we're a Kickstarter staff pick or project we love. Those are updates you should always do, but you can certainly and should plan quality updates that take people deeper into the project, at least once a week, maybe twice a week.
Yeah.
Just to get out some content about.
And it seems like all that kind of stuff, at least most of it, you pretty much want to already have it done, right? I mean, you don't want to be.
It would be ideal, but certainly
Yeah.
people, fly by the seat of their pants and, do off-the-cuff stuff as updates.
Yeah.
But there's no reason, if you plan it out ahead of time, that you can't have this in the can, basically, ready to go.
Yeah.
And, certainly there may be things that organically happen in the campaign that might, supersede what you originally intended, and that's fine, but at least you have this ready to go. Yep. So again, you want to continue to send out newsletter and updates throughout the campaign at the beginning, middle, near the end, and when you hit certain funding milestones, or if you're a Kickstarter project we love. There are, once you can think about incentivizing your backers to spread the word on their social networks. This is more successful with someone who had already established quite a big social network, Exploding Kittens. And so what they did is that they said, if we hit 100,000 backers, everyone will get a nicer box for their board game that they just backed. It was actually very popular. They also offered very goofy incentives, like if we can get 10 people dressed as Batman in a bathtub, then we'll offer this reward. And people went for it. But incentivizing backers, it should be attainable relative to where you're starting out on those social networks. So you can't expect to start out with 100 Twitter followers and then try to incentivize people to get 1,000 Twitter followers for a stretch goal to happen.
Yeah, Exploding Kittens was a project that I backed because I was already a reader of the Oatmeal, which is what the guy started, and he must have had a huge following to begin with.
Yeah,
so.
I think it still might be the most popular, like the campaign with the most backers on Kickstarter, because they hit over 100,000 backers. I mean, that was amazing. But it doesn't have to be to the same level of social, of trying to gamify the social network. You can just think about where you are on like Twitter or YouTube. Like if we get 20 more YouTube subscribers, we'll do this for the campaign. Something reasonable, but just an idea. And then once you hit your goal, or once you're near to hitting your goal, you can talk about stretch rewards, stretch goals. So stretch goals are additional rewards or ways that you're going to improve the final project. But stretch goals can also be a disincentive. So that's why I recommend you don't announce stretch goals until you're close to hitting your goal. Just because. Let's say in the video game world, if the stretch goal is localizing into Polish and Turkish, there might be a big group of backers, potential backers, who don't care that the game's going to be localized in Polish or Turkish, and so they have no incentive for the campaign to really hit that stretch goal. And also, if you wait until closer to hitting your goal, hopefully you'll have some feedback from the backers that you might have an idea, or it might inform you on what stretch goals you should have for your campaign. And certainly don't increase stretch goals that would complicate or increase shipping costs, or try to keep it to a minimum. So, and then also during your campaign, one of the things that I like to see is that people will edit the top of their campaign, their Kickstarter page, and they'll add top news. They'll add like news like, hey, we just got featured in the, in the Gazette. Here's an interview with our filmmaker. You have a question?
Yeah, how does something become a staff pick? How does Kickstarter say, oh, I like this?
Yeah,
How does that happen?
they keep the algorithm secret.
Oh, okay, so if it's some kind of,
So it would be by momentum of raising money and also engagement. So they do like to see comments on the campaign.
I see, okay.
Yeah, so and I would encourage you, even if they're just friends of yours, to say, hey, can you leave some encouraging comments, on the campaign. And then the final phase, fulfillment. So this is where you've successfully hit your goal. You've gotten the money from Kickstarter and Indiegogo, and you are now on the hook to create your project and to produce the rewards that you promised your backers. I did not go over your question about the funding and the risk and the rewards. So the flexible funding that Indiegogo offers, where you get to keep any amount of the money, even if you don't hit your goal, means you're still on the hook for producing those rewards that were promised to those backers. And so you just have to be very thoughtful when you craft your campaign, that you're pricing the rewards so that you can still fulfill the campaign,
Yeah, you don't
the
wanna
rewards.
just
Exactly.
give away all this stuff and not have any money left to do any of your project.
Right, exactly. So that's the risk. And then as we saw with Indiegogo, the fact that they have a very low success rate means that 90% of the time you're not going to hit your goal. Only 1 out of 10 will hit their goal under the flexible funding model. So. But in fulfillment, it's very common that deadlines slip, something happens, the manufacturer says they sent you the t-shirts, but you haven't gotten them, As long as you're transparent with your backers, they're generally very understanding, but that's the key, is during fulfillment, don't go quiet. Communicate with your backers about where you are in the status of fulfilling both the project and the rewards. So, and Kickstarter allows you to send out one survey to your backers, and this is the survey where you can be like, specify your t-shirt size, your color size, or if you want, stickers or something like that. This is, they only allow one survey to be sent. And so I encourage you to only send that survey when you're close to shipping, and then that way you can also ask people for their change of address. Fulfillment is also where hopefully you've done some of the research into shipping costs and have also priced out on your page for the additional costs for shipping internationally. Canada counts as international shipping, Mexico, Europe. So you want to make sure that you have had priced that out. Make a mock shipment, like here's one example of this reward tier with this t-shirt and a DVD. This is what it's going to weigh with all the packing material and all the tape applied, and how much is it going to cost to go domestically, Canada, Mexico, Europe. And then after you're done, keep up the engagement with your community and your fans. You don't have to do it as frequently as when you're running a live campaign, but let them know that you're still here, thinking about them, thankful for their backing their campaign, and continuing on the journey with you. So, some frequently asked questions. What's the top one here? Can I launch on Kickstarter and Indiegogo at the same time?
Number one.
Yeah, it is the question I hear most often. You can, but you risk splitting the audience and hitting the goal on either platform. The more common way is to launch on Kickstarter, fund there, and then take the campaign to Indiegogo. Indiegogo has a program called On Demand. So those are campaigns that have met their goal, been successfully funded. Doesn't even matter if it was successfully funded on Kickstarter, but then can continue to raise money on Indiegogo's platform.
Oh, okay.
Now, is there some momentum that results from doing that, or are they two completely separate? I mean, is there an advantage to?
You get a little bit of extra money. It won't be the
Yeah.
same amount, and certainly on Indiegogo it'll be a much smaller amount.
But-
But you can continue to get backers and you can continue to get money, but it wouldn't count on it for being the main source of funding from a crowdfunding campaign.
But people don't hear like, oh, I heard about it on Kickstarter. Yeah, I missed it, but oh my God, here it is on Indiegogo.
A little bit. There's a little bit of that, and that's why people go to Indiegogo and do the on-demand. But on-demand will only happen if you've successfully hit your goal
On
on either Indiegogo or Kickstarter, anywhere. Yeah.
So the purpose of doing it that way, if I understand, would be that Kickstarter, you have to meet a goal in order to get any of the money.
Right.
And then on Indiegogo, you don't, so that's why it's a good finisher.
Right. Yeah.
Because it can be, don't have to make a set amount.
You don't have to make a set amount in the initial campaign, but if you go to the on-demand, which is the secondary fundraising program, that is for after your main crowdfunding campaign has closed out, you would have had to have met your goal.
So my understanding would be the reason you'd go to Indiegogo as your secondary one is because it doesn't have to be like, now I'll only get my extra money
Right.
if I meet another big goal.
Right. Yeah. Another question is, should I use a backer management system like BackerKit? So BackerKit, with BackerKit, what happens is you can have a store. So you can continue to offer the merchandise that you offered during your Kickstarter campaign. You can also sell the t-shirts, the DVDs, all that through a BackerKit store. It'll also allow you to manage backers. So that means that they can update the change of address at any point. You're not just beholden to the one survey from Kickstarter. But BackerKit is expensive, so they take a percentage of the money raised on Kickstarter, 2 or 3%. And then depending on the project that you, depending on the BackerKit program, because they offer a couple different tiers, they also may take an additional percentage of any money from BackerKit. And then you can also think about using Shopify for just simply adding a store. And I know there are some friends of mine who enjoy using Shopify as a store. So another question that I get is, should I pay to advertise my crowdfunding campaign or purchase backer lists from sites like Crowdster? And I feel if you've built up your social networks, if you've informed your family and friends and put out a quality page with good updates and stuff, and you're going to hit your goal, you don't need to pay for advertising. You don't need to pay for the backer lists. Anecdotally, my experience with buying advertising is that basically the money you spend on advertising is about the same money you might get back in pledges. So the real advantage is that you're getting backers. You're not really getting extra revenue, additional revenue. It may help you hit your goal, but you're still spending that money just to acquire them.
What about just something? I mean, Facebook ads are pretty cheap.
My one caveat there is, if you want to advertise, you can do it on Facebook. Besides Google ads, and Facebook is the other biggest ad platform out there. And you can do testing. You can do a small campaign, test it out very cheaply. It's got very good targeting built into their system. So yeah, you can do Facebook ads for sure.
But you can't use that money, like from Kickstarter to run.
No, you won't have the money yet.
Until it's over.
Right. Okay. So, did everyone fill out their little pop quiz?
Can I retake it?
You want to retake it? Yeah, I think there's an extra one here.
What are we doing? This is our little quiz.
It's a little quiz.
Everybody have one?
So one of the things I'm responsible at my day job is pulling together market data research on video games, and so I take those skills and apply here for crowdfunding. And I looked at the Kickstarter campaigns that have been run out of the 4 Western Mass counties, So Hamden, Hampshire, Franklin, and Berkshire County.
Okay.
So, how much have all film and video campaigns raised on Kickstarter in Western Mass?
I would hope it would be $1 million or more. I mean, you're talking about all time?
Yep. So I looked at about 101 communities to pull together this information.
You've been busy.
A lot of work.
Yeah. All right, ready for the answer?
Sure.
Yeah.
Got it.
So who got that right? $647,000. So between the 500 and 749 range. Second question. How many film and video projects in Western Mass have been funded on Kickstarter? So not just launched, but funded, meaning they hit their goal.
Wait, let me change my eyes.
Can't be very many, given how few there were nationally or internationally. I'm gonna say 21 to 40.
You circle that?
Yeah, that's my guess.
All right, ready?
Why not?
48.
Really? Oh, more than I thought. Yeah.
Got it.
There are 10 total questions, so be curious to see if anyone gets more than 2 or 3, which is what my coworkers were averaging. Which Western Mass town has the highest total raise from film and video campaigns? So looking aggregately at what, Amherst, Holyoke, North Adams, what campaigns that came from those towns raised together.
Springfield's the biggest
Yeah.
city, but I would guess Northampton because there's more.
There's a
Probably
bigger
denser.
filmmaking community, I think.
I think so.
Maybe
Wealthy
Amherst.
people.
Well, circle your answer.
It's creative,
I'll
it's
say.
wealthy, it's.
Springfield.
Hey,
Northampton.
hey,
Got it.
$232,000.
Northampton.
I'm sorry, I didn't check the time here. Okay. Which Western Mass town has the highest success ratio on Kickstarter? So this is where most of the most successful campaigns originated.
Northampton.
Yeah.
Based on the previous.
But you got to realize I'm asking this because it's not Northampton.
Oh, see, I thought it was gonna be, I thought the other one was gonna be Amherst.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's funny.
So they may be launching fewer, but more of them are.
Yeah.
They actually launched more,
Oh, no.
or they've had more funded campaigns.
Oh,
More successful.
Now, that's not specific to film and video, that's in general. Is that right?
No, this is all film and video. This is
Oh,
just film and
This is
video.
all film and video?
Yeah.
Okay.
What is the highest raise from a single film and video campaign produced in Western Mass on Kickstarter? Circle your answers. Oh, is that question 5 on? Okay. 51,000. Almost. What is the median raise per campaign across all the funded film and video campaigns in Western Mass? Not average. So I like to look at medians because median is the middle number. Averages can be skewed by values that are too high or too low. So the median, about 5,600.
That's right in the middle.
The average is 13,000. So we can see that there are some higher grossing campaigns that pulled it up. This will be in the presentation, Ron. You don't have to take notes. It will be in the presentation copy.
Oh, okay.
What is the highest number of backers from a single funded film and video campaign?
1,000. That would be a lot, though. That's great.
I say 250.
Circle your answers. No cheating here.
This matters.
Yep,
Oh, yeah, it was.
1,031. See,
I was too pessimistic.
oh, okay. Oh, you had 249 or less. Wow. Okay. What is the median number of backers per campaign from the funded Western Mass Kickstarter campaigns?
That seems like a big number.
Hey, I guessed right. Hey!
Yeah. So, about 81 backers, 82. What category has the most funded film and video projects?
Documentary.
Yeah.
You
Mike
said
said
you
it
said
earlier.
it was documentary. Oh, but in Western Mass.
In Western Mass.
Of course, we've got Ken Burns. It's the Ken Burns effect. That's good.
Animation.
Shorts. Oh,
Documentary.
Documentary.
Which, you know, given our history of politics and
Yeah,
social activism
Makes
and
sense.
stuff.
nonfiction, makes sense, yeah.
What is the median amount raised per pledge and funded campaigns across Western Mass?
50 to 74.
That's D.
D?
D.
So now it's
Oh, wow. Whoa.
83.
Really?
Oh, that's what you said earlier.
Somebody's got some extra cash.
So just some charts of where I pulled that data. So regionally, Amherst led with the most campaigns, most funded, 71% success rate. The largest single campaign coming out of Amherst was 36,000. Northampton, it was 50,000. Springfield actually had the highest one at 51,000. The categories from the Western Mass campaigns. So documentary led with 22 projects, short films, 12. As you can see, the median amount of money brought in per backer really varies across the categories. So this is why you want to do your research and look at comparable campaigns, because that's going to tell you about how much money you can bring in per backer.
So could you just go back to the previous, so I'm just trying to understand the columns. So like just on short films, which is what we're looking at, so the median, so it's roughly 2,800
Yeah.
for a short film. And the median backer gave $64.
That was the average amount of money brought in per backer. That's,
Average amount.
or the median amount of money brought in per backer, yeah.
Yeah, okay. That's pretty decent. I mean, I was thinking that, you know, the best that we could hope for is 1,500, but I mean, for a short film to raise
Yeah.
$2,800, I mean, that's,
So it's within
We
the
can
realm
do a
of
lot with that.
possibility, but you definitely, again, you've got to do your research.
yeah.
But, you know, and this also tells you that, you know, offering rewards in higher tiers will help bring up the amount of money brought in per backer.
Yeah.
Because most likely a lot of these had the basic tiers at, you know, $15, $20, $25. But, you know,
But somehow
The
they
amount of
got
money
people to give a lot more than that.
yeah. So these are the top 10 campaigns. I'm going to go through these a little faster because I want to be able to talk and brainstorm with you guys about your campaign. But this information is in there. You can see that they're mostly documentaries. You can see what the goal is and that the raise, what they actually raised and from how many backers. And again, you can see that the amount of money brought in per backer varied across the campaigns. One of the things I will point out is if you notice, a lot of the campaigns, this one, this documentary, $50,000. It brought in just a little bit over $50,000. This one had a goal of $47,000. It brought in $51,000. So when we think about Kickstarter campaigns, a lot of times we hear about the outliers, like how many millions of dollars or how much money it brought in. The local campaigns aren't really going over their goal by that much money. So again, to me, that tells me that it's mostly about social networks and getting your friends and family and colleagues and people, 1 or 2 degrees separated to pull in to back your campaign. It's not really about finding an anonymous crowd that really drives the virality of the campaign up, that it pushes, your campaign to different heights.
The two wrote the movie did twice what their goal was. Must be doing something right.
And so these are, one of the reasons I haven't talked about Indiegogo is, again, that no one really keeps stats on Indiegogo the way that I've seen for Kickstarter. Also, the search function for Indiegogo is really poor, like trying to find campaigns based out of Northampton. I'm getting Northampton in the UK. And so it was really frustrating. I can't say for sure that I found the highest grossing local campaigns on Indiegogo, but from what I could find, here are the top 10 that I could find. And if you notice, goal here, 30,000, only raised 14,000. Goal, 15,000, only raised 9. These are flexible funding campaigns, so they got to keep the money that they raised, but we're looking at a lower success ratio on Indiegogo, and we're looking at less money that's raised from fewer backers. So that's why, for all the reputation I've heard about Indiegogo and being the platform to go if you're a filmmaker, I don't necessarily think that's the case for local, regional film and video campaigns.
In your experience, what do you think the lack of success comes down to? That you can get part of the money, so you can't sort of use that as to motivate your backers. Unless we get this number, you might as well give us nothing. Or is it less well known than?
I think it's less well known.
So it's the.
Yeah, and I didn't really look at the quality of the campaigns. It may be that the quality of the campaigns is not as high on Indiegogo because they just allow anyone to go up on the platform without any pre-approval. The pre-approval, they will give you feedback, on a little bit of feedback, very general feedback, but it might be that keeps the quality bar a little higher on their platform.